Good morning, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris in central Pennsylvania. Just when you think it's safe to listen to the talking heads, the pontificating gas bags who talk about events on the nightly news programs on cable news, and the articles that come out of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and all these mainstream media outlets, another example of just how dangerous some of these folks are comes to mind. Now, if you ever need to be reminded that many of the so-called brilliant people on the political left are not really all that bright, just connected and or compliant with the silly and dangerous narratives, look no further than Paul McFaul, former U.S. Ambassador to Russia from 2012 to 2014 under Barry Obama, and current Ken Olivier and Angela Nominelli Professor in International Studies in the Department of Political Science at Stanford University, a prestigious school in California, to say the least. McFaul is also director of the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies and a Peter and Helen Bing Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution. Sounds impressive, no? Well, Stanford and the Hoover Institution, well respected. Of course, some people we really respect out there are fantastic people out there, but this guy, let's talk about this. It gets better. McFaul also worked for the U.S. National Security Council as Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director of Russian and Eurasian Affairs. Sounds like somebody pretty well informed on Europe, eh? He was the architect of President Barack Obama's bonehead and failed surrender or reset policy with Russia. Reportedly, he was also a supporter of Obama's dangerous Iran nuclear deal. Now, appearing on the Rachel Maddow Show last week, McFaul provided a favorable view of Adolf Hitler, echoing a Ukrainian reporter who claimed that Putin was showing increased aggression compared to Hitler because the Russian dictator is killing his own people. Now, McFaul said, one of the Russian journalists said, there's one difference between Hitler when he was coming in and Putin. Hitler didn't kill ethnic Germans. He didn't kill German-speaking people. I think people need to remember that we're talking about cities like Kharkov, Mariupol, and Kiev. There are large populations there, up to a third, sometimes as much as half, that are Russian speakers and are ethnic Russians. And yet Putin doesn't seem to care about that. He slaughters the very people he said he's come to liberate. This is what McFaul said on MSNBC's Rachel Maddow to guest host Ali Velshi. Now, the Maddow Show's account on Twitter was forced to delete a segment of Paul McFaul comparing Russian President Vladimir Putin to Hitler after it was fact-checked by the Auschwitz Memorial. McFaul also walked back his comments on Saturday, telling viewers that he slipped late last night and violated an unwritten taboo. Never compare Hitler with anyone. I agree. He was incomparably evil, and I won't do it again. He went on to defend himself in combat exchanges with other Twitter users, telling one user, of course I know the millions of German speakers and people with German nationality that Hitler killed. I generally want to learn more about the ethnic German civilians living outside of Germany that Hitler consciously slaughtered. I don't know that history. Sounds an awful lot like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying he wants to understand white rage because he doesn't know it. And in another tweet, yes, I know the difference between ethnic identities and state nationalities, but thanks all for the reminders. Only, this guy's not very bright, or he's just a willing accomplice to a long line of leftist apologists who hid Stalin's pogroms, his genocide against Ukrainian peasants, and other countless leftist bloodlettings in the 20th century. Just for his own edification, since former Ambassador McFaul would like to learn about what happened to ethnic Germans outside of Germany. Apparently he didn't care about ethnic Germans inside Germany, but I'll include those inside Germany and outside of Germany in a brief little history lesson for him. Understanding he is a fellow at the Hoover Institution and not particularly well informed, bright, or educated on a subject matter that he claims to be an expert on, Russian and Eurasian studies. Hans Scholl, Willy Graf, and Alexander Schmorell founded the White Rose in 1942 after seeing SS troops murder Jews on the Eastern Front. Hans' sister Sophie and Christoph Probst also joined the group. Now, the Gestapo went on the hunt for the White Rose after they dropped leaflets around complaining about what the government was doing, anti-Hitler messages. The Scholls and Probst were quickly tried, and the three were beheaded on the 22nd of February, 1943. Dozens of others were arrested for real or falsely suspected ties to the White Rose. Later, Graf and Schmor were also executed. Famously, the Lutheran pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer was executed by hanging on the 9th of April, 1945, just a month before the war came to an end, for his complicit role in the 20 July plot to execute Hitler, to assassinate Hitler, I should say. More than 300,000 Germans were sterilized and countless numbers were gassed under a law passed on the 14th of July, 1933. The law called the Law for the Prevention of Genetically Diseased Offspring. This was a trial run for the gas chambers that took place in Eastern Europe later. Thousands of Mischlings, or mixed-race Germans, the offspring of German women and African soldiers from Francophone West Africa who were stationed in the Rhineland, which was demilitarized. They were there for a good 2 decades after the First World War. Thousands, tens of thousands of Mischlings, mixed-race Germans, were sent to concentration camps. As many as 30,000 were believed to have died under the Nazis. Homosexuals were also a target for the Nazis. Thousands were sent to death camps or those suspected of homosexuality where they died. When the war broke out in 1939, Hitler ordered the elimination of the severely retarded because they were useless eaters. Operating from headquarters in Tiergartenstrasse 4 in Berlin, the T4 program took the retarded to extermination centers and gassed them with carbon monoxide. In just 2 years from 1939 to 1941, over 50,000 Germans were killed in this program. The clergy and people of faith were also targeted extensively, eerily similar to the leftist and Democrat demonization and ridicule of Christians in America in the late 20th century and the early 21st century. Catholic Provost Bernhard Lichtenberg of St. Hedwig's Cathedral in Berlin was arrested, imprisoned for 2 years, rearrested at the end of his sentence, and then shipped to Dachau, where he died on the way there. In 1936, Franz Couserot, father of 11 children, refused to renounce his religion as a Jehovah's Witness. He was put in jail until the end of the war. 2 of his sons were executed because they refused induction into the army on religious grounds, conscientious objector status. Wilhelm was shot by a firing squad in Münster prison on the 27th of April, 1940. Wolfgang Couserot was executed by guillotine at the Brandenburg-Gürden prison for conscientious objecting induction to the German army because of his religious beliefs as Jehovah's Witness. Another son was incarcerated in Dachau, where he contracted tuberculosis and died just after the war. Arguably, another 4 million ethnic Germans fleeing from Soviet troops and conflict at the end of the war from Ostpreußen, East Prussia, Pommern, Pomerania, or Schlesien, Silesia, as well as Romania, Hungary, and the Sudetenland, should be on Hitler's ledger for killed Germans' innocents. When you see mainstream media prop up ill-informed or malicious ideologues dressed up as credible academics, when you see state propagandists like Peppermint Patty and her boss Joe Biden do end runs around the Constitution, colluding with the private sector to silence political opposition, you quickly realize that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, especially the pigs that live in the swamp. Folks, if you're not distressed by the conduct and behavior of a former U.S. ambassador to Russia who is either intentionally and willfully ignorant or just a shill for the political left, it's frightening. This man is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, and he can't even identify simple basic facts about what happened in the Second World War. How in the world does somebody in their 6th decade of life not know what happened in the Second World War? Someone born in the 1960s, no less, just 2 decades after the conflict ended. This man is an academic, a former ambassador, and he doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. Frightened? You should be. These idiots are the ones teaching our university students, our offspring, our progeny. No wonder they have no idea what the hell's going on in the world, and they fall for every leftist lie that's out there. Make no mistake, the extreme left, the radical left, is no less dangerous than the extreme radical right. Thing is, the radical right controls nowhere, save a few places, perhaps in Europe. This is frightening, to say the least. Well, folks, if you're not subscribed, please become one. Help overcome shadow banning on this platform and others. We appreciate your support. God bless. And take care of yourself.